at this point, given what we're seeing in the courts, at the DOJ, and even in state AG offices, and given Democrats, Trump is Hitler rhetoric, is it not logical, at least to consider, maybe even to assume, that some on the left are hoping to spark some type of civil unrest here, which would be followed, of course, by a mass crackdown on civil liberties, or the declaration of maybe a nationwide emergency, all as a way, a pretextual way, to usher in, I don't know, nationwide mail-in voting?
That is the absolute best way that could have ended all of that. We want you to come and start assassinating Democratic politicians and shooting up liberals and stuff so that we can crack down, rip up the Constitution, so we can get mail voting. That's what the tyranny is for, so that everyone can vote without having to go and stand in a high school gymnasium for 45 minutes. That's what the conspiracy is about. Utterly madness, Mondale. She's on to us. What do you think, Mondale? Should we change course?
John, I don't think so. I think we should stay doing the most undemocratic thing to get more people to participate in the most democratic thing. Absolutely ridiculous. No thinking at all in their strategies, man. I am so frustrated with what we're calling the other party. And the sad part about this is people like us, John, shouldn't be happy about this. You want to know why? Because without a functioning Republican Party, we get lazy Democrats, and that doesn't benefit anybody.
Yeah, that is true. The conspiracy theory is madness, and we'll move on to a little bit from her in a bit. But I want to point out something that she didn't say there, something that you will almost never see one of these right wingers say, which is, as they're in their middle of, our arms are being twisted into violence. They're hoping, they're praying that there will be violence. You know what she didn't say? Don't engage in violence. The Democrats want violence, so don't give it to them. The Democrats are trying to set up a dictatorship, but before that happens, they need you right wingers to commit acts of violence, so don't do it. It's unacceptable. It's not a part of our movement. If you engage in violence or make violent threats, you are automatically not a part of this project we're engaged in. They will never say anything like that. You didn't see it from her or Jesse Waters or when Meghan McCain engages in that sort of stuff. And the crazy thing is, they're the reputable, serious ones. They're on Fox News again. They're wearing fancy clothes and they have really fancy studios. Whereas Mondale and I, we're shooting out of our homes, our offices, we're wearing hoodies. Now, the fact that we are very responsible and serious in the way we engage in these things, and we worry constantly about how the words we say could be misconstrued. So we're always careful in how we speak and hold ourselves to far higher ethical standards than these people making millions over at Fox. We're chuckleheads on the internet. But the serious people on The View and on Fox News just constantly threaten with a wink and a nod civil war and mass political violence. Let's go to a little bit more from Graham, and then I want to hear from Mondale.
They can always roll out the so-called experts with talking points, but you should just ignore them. Here's the truth. No trained lawyer on earth believes that Buffalo head guy and the boys, or Donald Trump speaking at the Ellipse, were engaged in a serious effort to overthrow the government of the United States. No one believes that.
I believe it. I think they were trying to do it. I don't think that they had a great shot at doing it, but idiots try to do stuff that isn't likely to succeed all the time. This is like the coup version of how right wingers make jokes, wherein they say something horrible, and then if people have a problem with it, hey, I was just joking. It becomes a joke after the fact. They attempted to sack the Capitol, and when it failed, well, we weren't really trying to do that. Like, if they had succeeded, let's say that they had somehow succeeded in killing enough politicians or burning the original ballots or whatever, and Donald Trump stayed in office, do you think that Fox would have immediately changed their tune and spent the last 3 years providing like rebel underground radio against this dictatorship? Because it never should have happened. Does anybody think that? It's crazy what they're allowed to advocate for, the lies they're allowed to tell. Mondale, we're covering a lot of ground here, but tell me what you think.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely ridiculous how they're trying to normalize the J6ers, man. This is some serious mess. And I think what's scary to me is they're saying no one actually believes this. But tell all the dead people that. And I'm not trying to be coy, but tell all the families that lost family members that day or because of that day. Tell all the officers who are currently suffering from PTSD because of what happened to them. This is absolutely ridiculous that we have to allow. This should be censored stuff, right? Like you shouldn't be allowed to say this on TV without someone putting a check or a asterisk beside it, because this is absolutely ridiculous. It's also funny and rich coming from a network that was just sued for $750 million for lying about the election results.
100%, yeah. Yeah, and by the way, so the way she started that is less dramatic, what she was focused on there, but it was, don't listen to their arguments for why Trump needed to be taken off the Colorado ballot. And I believe her there. I believe that she really does not want people to actually listen to the arguments, which by the way, I don't think are open and shut, but there's certainly an argument that's being made. The Constitution says that if you've engaged in insurrection, you can't hold office. So it really comes down to, do you believe it was an insurrection? And do you believe it applies to the president? And lawyers are making that case. Laura Ingraham is not interested in debating this. And her just saying, oh, a guy was wearing animal horns, so it doesn't count. The dictionary definition of insurrection is a violent uprising against an authority or government. Like maybe there should be a competitive scale there, but this was definitely a violent uprising against the government. They were breaking into government buildings, trying to stop the government from functioning while chanting that they wanted to kill members of the government. And again, she's not going to engage in an actual argument and try to convince people that it doesn't rise to the level of insurrection, or that in her scholarly reading of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that it doesn't apply to the president. She just doesn't want to engage in it. Instead, they jump to slogans. And so if we could go to graphic 5, you're not gonna be surprised on where they've landed on how to fight against this. She opened her show by saying America is seeing the ultimate election interference. Laura Loomer posted, this is election interference. Jason Miller, election interference. Tommy Lauren, election interference. Greg Jarrett, he's their legal analyst. It's election interference. Monica Crowley used to be in the Trump administration. Election interference. Did anyone hear anyone talk about that before Donald Trump? But Donald Trump says it now. So automatically, anything that hurts Trump is election interference. It is the government trying to affect the course of the election. And interestingly, like every other term they use, whether it's cancel culture or whatever, it sounds as if that's a thing that could apply in many different circumstances, and yet it is definitionally not able to be spread in that way. So for instance, when the Republicans announce impeachment investigations against Joe Biden, is that election interference? No. It doesn't fit under this construct. Anything that's done to, when they're, as we're gonna get to, saying in Texas and South Dakota and multiple states, let's take Joe Biden off the ballot. Is that election interference? No. Election interference is only anything that hurts Trump by definition, and they've all agreed on it. Mondale, what are your thoughts?
You just shared my thoughts, John. I mean, stop being so woke. You stop being so woke. You're too woke. Listen, here's the irony of it is ridiculous. Like the lady that I was talking about that had on the Hang Biden shirt with a cross on top of it, literally said that Biden had been committing treasonous acts for 3 decades, when in actuality, we saw Donald Trump show up for one presidency and do everything that she was blaming Biden for. And it's like the projection on Republican is unbelievable right now, right here. As we deal with the Republican elected officials in DC who are not capable of doing anything, we still have to deal with the idea that those who voted them in will not change their mind because of the facts you're presenting. And they much rather hear Ingram and the other talking heads over at Fox with their nice suits.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.